Partnership between Eskom and Exxaro on Gupta-affiliated company favoritism. However, power utility Eskom has defended its decision not to renew its contract with the multinational company Exxaro. The 40-year-old partnership ended in December last year. Officials say Exxaro failed to deliver on its contractual obligations. Well, to give us more insight on this matter, we are joined by Oak Bay Group or Oak Group CEO Nazeem Howa. It's good to have you in studio, and thank you very much for being with us on the program.
Thanks, Leanne.
Now, let's get straight to the nitty-gritty. What do you say to the claims that suggest or insinuate that Exxaro's contract was cancelled because of the Gupta family influence?
You know, Leanne, it's a very difficult one for me to answer. I'm not one of the interested parties. I can talk about what I've read in the newspapers. And there was a very good newspaper article in Business Day in December that spoke about a 40-year contract coming to an end at the end of December. And from what I've read in that article, Eskom had been talking to Exxaro since, I think, March last year about conditions around that contract. But that's what I've read in the newspapers. But I think what we must understand as South Africans is that 7 companies are now supplying the same power station that Exxaro was. Between the 7 of us, we're supplying 15%. Eskom is making a saving of just over 50% on the rate they paid Exxaro. Now that 50% equates to 2 billion of taxpayer money that's being saved. Mm-hmm. Now again, we must ask, who would object to 2 billion of taxpayer money being saved? Eskom, according to that article, is also pulling out of what they call cost-plus models. So the 2 billion would not include any costs they put in terms of capital or anything else on that mine in terms of the cost-plus model. So if you say 2 billion over a 40-year period, it's 80 billion rand that could be saved going forward.
Yeah.
Who would object to that? I don't understand.
Perhaps it's the manner in which the deal was actually gotten, because let's look at some of these reports. And some of the reports saying that in September last year, Eskom went to extraordinary lengths to see that the Gupta family scored a coal supply deal from the parastatal. Are you confident that all bidders, including Optimum, followed the required processes?
I have no doubt about that. And it's very easy to make accusations. I was reading a piece on Politics Web this morning about the Mail and Guardian story on the DA leader and FW de Klerk. And the author made a very interesting piece. Sometimes we name unnamed sources and we quote 3 or 4 unnamed sources, all repeating the same rumor. The rumor doesn't make it true. But we'd welcome, and I'll be the first one to stand in line to take responsibility if anything untoward happened on any of these contracts. But by the same token, as a small black-owned company, surely we have a right to compete and to tender. And we'll do that on any fair grounds. In the case of Exxaro, and I'll come back to the Exxaro deal, or the Arno deal, we are supplying coal at more than 50% discount. The same coal, the same quality. It's a benefit to our taxpayers.
Is it normal that the minister would be in a meeting, though?
Again, you're asking a question which I shouldn't be answering, but I'm going to do it as an outsider watching what's happening around us. I think if I look at it, and I've come into the industry now, the minister is very worried about the number of job losses. That is very clear to me. I saw a report in City Press yesterday talking about 32,000 job losses in the next while. That's what the CCMA is quoting in the mining industry. He's had a retreat in September, I think last year or August last year. He's been meeting with all the company CEOs to say, how do we stem these job losses? But it's for the minister to answer that question. If there's an opportunity through us buying Optimum to save 3,000 jobs, if I was minister, I would want to help that deal go through.
Yeah.
Not for any other reason except to save the jobs and to make sure that the 2 power stations that are supplied remain stable and supply the grid. I don't think it's an unreasonable request. He'd be failing his duty if he didn't do it.
What about Peter Temane and the group of businessmen that put in a bid for Optimum? In fact, they have also said they were saying there would be no job losses, and they were offering almost over $1 billion more than what you offered, that you got the deal. What happened there?
It's a very strange story. I read it this morning. It's a very, very strange story. The business rescue practitioners have a legal obligation to close the best deal for Optimum. So we obviously were as shocked as everyone else when we saw it this morning. If that deal is real, the business rescue practitioners should answer, but we're very happy to step back and let him come in. Very, very happy on the basis we get our money back from Optimum. We've already advanced money to Optimum to run the mine, despite not owning the mine. So we get our money back. We're very happy to step back. But the question is, on the Optimum mine, There's an Eskom penalty of 2 billion rand, we're assuming as the new owners when the deal goes through. We've guaranteed to continue supplying at 150 rand a ton till the end of the contract, which is December 2018. And we will not renew that contract until December 2018. If he wants those conditions, and if he can confirm with the business rescue practitioners, we'll stay back, no problem. Absolutely no problem.
They threaten going to the High Court.
That is their right. We have a wonderful constitution and they have a right. But I want to draw your attention, Leanne, to the statement from the business rescue practitioners when we closed the deal. And there are two very important paragraphs that we should share with you. The first one is, over the past several months, the BRPs, that's the business rescue practitioners, have worked with the management of Optimum Holdings and Optimum Mine to consider all available options to rescue the companies that may be acceptable to Eskom and other key stakeholders, which include shareholders, creditors, organized labor, employees and regulators. The last paragraph, they say, we believe this transaction provides the most optimal outcome for stakeholders and importantly preserves the livelihoods of thousands of the mine's employees and dependents, as well as the uninterrupted coal supply to 2 of Eskom's 13 power stations. That's what the business rescue practitioner said. So I have no doubt in my mind that they've applied their minds to this deal because they have to do so legally. They can be charged in court if they don't do that. So if they've not acted correctly, Mr. I think his name is, whoever he is, has every right to challenge them on it. We have no issue with that.
Okay, we'll wait and see what their next move is. It's Mr. Peter Temane. Let's have a look at the issue, and I think you mentioned at the beginning of the interview that you're only supplying 15% of coal. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Whereas there are reports coming out and suggestions that the Gupta family, the Gupta family or the Gupta mines supply all of Eskom's coal.
You know, I've got in front of me a schedule we had to submit as part of the Competition Commission process. At the moment, Gupta, which is really black-owned, it's not Gupta-owned, it's black-owned, supplies 1.3% of the total domestic coal supply. 1.3%. If the deal goes through, and we hope it does go through, we'll get another 3% of the domestic coal supply. So in total, we'll be under 5% of the domestic coal supply. But the way the media is reporting is if we're supplying 90% of Eskom's coal. In fact, the bulk of the coal is being supplied by the Anglo-Americans, by Glencore itself, by Exxaro, BHP Billiton and South 32. Those are the major suppliers. We at the moment are sitting at 1.3% of the total supply. So we're minuscule in the market.
A key issue for all stakeholders in this deal is the security of coal supply to Eskom and the impact that is going to have on our country and our electricity system. I mean, can you guarantee that the grid will continue if you get this and this all goes ahead?
Well, you know, Eskom is very good at leveraging penalties. We've seen that at Optimum, and I think we'll be under the same strain and pressures as any other operator. We have no special, I wish we did have special arrangements. It would make life a lot easier. I think the way the media has reported is actually much more difficult for us to do business because everybody's eyes are on us. It's a much more difficult task to operate for us. As a small black-owned company, it's very, very difficult.
Again, let's talk about job losses. You're guaranteeing that there will be absolutely no job losses.
You know, we've never said that. We've absolutely never said that. We've also never said we're going to go out and retrench. But if you go in the history of the deal was done in a very short space of time. Despite what everybody else said, I led the negotiating team. Over a period of maybe 7 days, we closed this deal. We started a due diligence on one of the mines and stopped after 9 days. So we actually haven't completed the due diligence. The argument we're making with the Competitions Commission is we will take every reasonable step to avoid job losses. But until we actually understand the business, and in terms of competitions law, we don't understand the business, we cannot make that commitment. Our business plan talks about increasing the number of tons of coal we produce and trying to find new markets for those coals. So our business plan is not about cutting jobs, it's about growing the revenues in the business. So we want to say categorically, we've never retrenched at Gupta. Not one person has been retrenched at Gupta. In fact, as a group, we are a net grower of jobs. In our media company, we've created 500 jobs. In our gold and uranium mine, we've created 900 jobs when nobody else would do it. In Gupta's only existing mine at the moment, we've created there another 100 jobs. So we've created jobs if you look at our history. We've never destroyed jobs.
Let's also focus on the anger that's happening right now. And there's a lot of anger among South Africans, but we'll talk about what South Africans are saying, but let's talk about the unions right now, because now that's another battle you've got. You've got COSATU, you've got the SACP. They're going to fight this acquisition. They don't want this going ahead. They say that Eskom's hand was forced in this matter. You've got the EFF saying they want the removal of the Mineral Resources Minister because he had a hand at play in all of this as well. They want the public protector involved. There's a lot going on and there's a lot at stake.
Sure.
Do you think this is all unfounded?
You know, I can speak from my perspective, and you know, I make the challenge very often. If one single person can come forward and show where we've done wrong, please do so. And I personally will apologize and accept responsibility. But let me talk a bit about this Optimum deal. If I go back to the BRP statement, there was no other player on the market. Where Mr. Temani's come from, I'm not aware. But there was no other player, and the BRPs have made that point. The BRPs have made that point. There was no other player in the market. So, you know, from our point of view, show us where we've had any unfair advantage. We've bought a mine for 2.15 billion. We've assumed the Eskom contract from Optimum at 150 rand a ton. Again, remember, the Arno colliery was supplying, and the Exxaro was supplying to Eskom at 900 rand a ton. So we're going to supply at 150 rand a ton. So where have we gone wrong here? I don't see it.
Again, now I want to come back to the relationship and the views of South Africans towards the family and the Gupta family. I mean, I have to ask you, because you're here in a way representing them. People are very worried about the relationship between our President Jacob Zuma and the Gupta family. It appears that they are getting wealthier to the behest of South Africans, that in order to go up in competition against the Gupta family is almost impossible because they've got, as many people have described it, an abusing proximity to political office for business interests. And we can mention many, many examples about this. And the reputation is getting harder and harder and worse to manage. It must be difficult to do business in an environment like this, with a reputation like this.
It's extremely difficult. It's extremely difficult, and more so in that it's so lacking in truth. And why I say lacking in truth, I could give you several anecdotal stories, but let me give you one. We were owed over 20 million in VAT returns from SARS. It took us 9 months, I think, to get it back from SARS. Now, which other company has to go through those troubles? And I could go through 3 or 4 other kinds of stories. But I think what we have in South Africa right now is the need for us to transform our economy. And I think there's resistance to that transformation of the economy. I think us entering, if I talk about this deal, this is the first time a black-owned company is entering in a significant way into the mining industry. Of course, there's going to be resistance to it. But, you know, the biggest worry for me is the lack of factual basis and how these rumors grow and snowball and snowball and snowball. And again, on national television and your wonderful show, my challenge is show us one place where we've taken an unfair advantage. And I know the answer will be zero. Nobody will be able to do that. It really is based on rumor, supposition, etc., etc., etc.
Let's leave it there for this morning. Thank you for coming in. It's been a pleasure hosting you here on the program and just talking about a few of the issues that we've been seeing in the newspapers and talking about the news. Nazeem Howa, who is the CEO of Ekba Investments, talking to us here on the program about what the National Union of Mine Workers has blamed the failed partnership between Eskom and Exxaro on Gupta-affiliated company favoritism. So hopefully giving a little bit more details on that one. Thank you again.